my father and I would have sat calmly in a room together. Quiet and uncomfortably still. The still of the silence would be broken with a joke. How did the man dying of cancer quit smoking? How? He died. I would hesitantly crack a smile because I knew that my dad had sort of a dark and shady sense of humor. But then I could see myself shedding a tear or two after realizing that the man he is talking about in the morbid joke is himself. And this would turn the joke into a painful nightmare for me. If I had privilege, then when I first found out my father had a brain tumor, I wouldn't have been as afraid as I was. But I felt fear and panic. The power of the moment when I found out, the power of my mother's words left me feeling numb and speechless and sent shivers down my spine, and I'm stopped. All I wanted was to go home. But I couldn't. I didn't have the money. I didn't have enough privilege to say I want to use the privilege I have here at Duke to fly home and sit with my siblings and comfort my father who has an inoperable brain tumor. I couldn't casually go to an ATM and take out the couple $100 it takes to fly home and sit with my siblings and comfort my mother. No, I had to be here, and I had to deal with my father having a terminal disease by myself. Because I had to. You're probably thinking, wow, you're so strong. I don't think I could stay here at school while my father is losing his mind back home. But this doesn't make me strong. It makes me weak. I am weak because I go to one of the best universities in the country, and I can't exercise my privilege when I want to. Isn't that pathetic? If I had privilege, I could have sat by my father's side and held his hand. And we would have had a great conversation together. Obviously, this isn't what happened. I remember exactly what I was doing. It had been less than a week since I found out about the tumor, and I was struggling to get home. I happened to be in Perkins Lane one night, putting away a book. And I don't know what it was about putting away that book on that shelf that night that made me realize that something was wrong. It was only for a moment. So I got up, and I packed my things, and I ran to my room, ignoring anyone I knew. And I got to my room, and I went to my phone laying on my desk. I just stood there in my room, and I looked at that phone, knowing somehow I got the courage from somewhere to pick it up. And I saw that I had 34 missed calls, 19 texts, and 12 voicemails, and I listened to them all. I don't know why. Maybe it was to prove that one of them was wrong, that one of them wasn't true. But Dad had passed. And I wouldn't have the privilege to see him off to the afterlife. If I had privilege, I could see us sitting in a room talking for hours on end with a total disregard for time. Even though now I see it's precious. We would recede into the past and brood over our memories together. I would flash back to the time he got me my first green two-wheeler. Or how he got me addicted to cotton candy. Or how every morning for breakfast, he would set the table for everyone. And there would always be red apples on top of every single plate, except for mine. You see, he knew I didn't like red apples. And so every morning I could expect to see a big-ass green apple on a plate that I instantly knew was mine. These are the memories we would share together for the last time. If I had the privilege. If I had privilege, I could carelessly spend money on fancy cars, or clothes, or clubs. Or I could save it in my bank account and use it for an emergency. If I had privilege, I could get on a plane and I could go to Cancun or Miami Beach for spring break. Or I could get on a plane and go home and see Dad. If I had privilege, I could walk into a room like I own it and have all eyes stare at me because I have status and position. Or I could walk into that same room and have all eyes stare at me with tears on my face and have them stare at me for a completely different reason. If I had privilege, I could watch my father die.